everybody, welcome to Down Home Backyard Gardening. Are you new to gardening? Or have you been gardening a while and you're just getting your toes wet, you're figuring out your strategies, your gardening, and you keep hearing people talk about these three letters, NPK. Well, what is it? Is it important? Do you really need to know all this? The answer is yes, yes, and yes. But I'm going to keep this incredibly simple because that's the way I need it. Very, very simple. If you want to learn about NPK, the benefits of understanding it, knowing it, and getting it, watch this video. Y'all, let's grow. I stand here looking at this garden. Everything growing, exploding with fruits. It's a testament of understanding not only your soil composition and the fertilizers that you use, but why they're important to the growth of your garden. So NPK stands for nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. So those three numbers you are going to see on the label of pretty much every fertilizer that you can get. And they will always be in that order, the NPK. Again, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Those numbers are the big three numbers for all fertilizers. Okay, so why is it important that you know what these numbers mean? Well, because as a gardener, you should want to know everything about gardening. And even though this is all science and chemistry and all that, and it might not be the fun, glamorous, like, hey, look at the size of this tomato, this is really important. You need to know what these mean, what these numbers mean, and how they can benefit your garden. So as an example, let's take this Neptune's Harvest bag right here. Right down here at the bottom, you've got a 5, a 3, and a 0. So those two numbers are going to totally help your plants grow leaves and roots. These numbers will always be the same, no matter if it's a liquid fertilizer or a granule. Those three numbers are the universal numbers, period. There's a really easy way to remember what these three numbers mean. Just think of it this way: shoots, roots, and fruits. Nitrogen will help the shoots. And what I mean by shoots is the green growth, the leafy growth. Potassium will help with the roots, making the roots grow, helping the roots grow, developing a strong root system. And then fruits. The potassium is what helps your plants produce their fruit. So if you just remember, instead of NPK, just get it in your head: shoots, roots, and fruits. So if you have a plant that you really want to focus your fertilizer on growing its fruits, you're going to want a number, an NPK number, that's low in the first two and high in the third one. Because remember, the third number is potassium, which helps with the fruit growth. If you have a plant that you really need to give it some boost to get leaves growing, then you want a strong first number for the nitrogen. So understanding the three numbers is actually incredibly beneficial for you as a gardener. And if you're a beginner gardener, now is the time to be locking in this knowledge and remembering it, because it took me till last year before I had this down, and that was my third year growing. So this year I'm off to the races. I've understood this now, so over this past winter I was able to utilize that knowledge and put it into action out here. And just behind me you can see this tomato bed is just blowing up. I don't have a ton of tomatoes growing, but I do have a good Cherokee purple right there. So if I wanted to amend this bed to give the bed or that plant more oomph to get tomatoes growing, I would put in what number? The third number, right? For the fruits, the potassium. So knowing that only helps benefit you understanding your garden and your plants. And that's why this is so important, even for beginner gardeners. And this is why I really wanted to do this video, is just to break this down, because if you start getting into all the chemical compounds and the chemistry and, I don't need to know all that. I really don't. I don't need to know where in the periodic table this comes from. I don't care. What I care about is knowing that if I put more nitrogen out here, say in a fish emulsion, what's it going to do to my plants? Or if my plants just seem like, man, I don't know if their roots are good. Well, which one of the 3 numbers do I need to fertilize with to get that root system going? Which again is the second one, the second number. Again, knowing this non-glamorous part of gardening is actually very, very, very important. Is it better to get a fertilizer that has super, super high numbers like a 23, 15, and 8, or a 5, 3, and 2? Well, that totally depends on what type of gardening you're doing. If you are going to do a bunch of Miracle-Gro, synthetic, lab-created fertilizers, then you're going to have those higher numbers. And what those higher numbers do, because when you look at it and you're like, oh man, look at this one, the N on this one is 23, where on this other one, it's a 10. So I'm going to take the 23. Well, if you take the 23, what you're doing is you are just jam-packing that plant full of nitrogen to where you could actually hurt the plant. You could burn the plant because they're just taking in too much. And it's a synthetic normally. Most organic fertilizers are going to be in those lower numbers because they might not come on right away, right when you plant, but they're a slower, longer lasting fertilizer. And if you are going to be an organic gardener, in other words, everything out here that you do in your garden is organic, then you don't want those high numbers. You don't want those synthetic fertilizers. You want the organic fertilizers. Yes, they will take a little bit longer to get going, but once they get going, you're good to go. And then you just constantly, slowly keep amending everything. And, that's gardening. But it comes down to what type of gardener or what type of garden you want to have. Do you want your fruits, your tomatoes, your peppers, your squashes to be full of fake synthetic fertilizers, which is not going to hurt them? It's not going to hurt the fruit at all. But I guess what I'm saying is, for me, I do everything organic, from dealing with pests to amending my beds to the soil that I use, everything. The fertilizer I use, everything I do is organic. And that's just a choice I've decided to make for me. But no judgment here. If you go the chemical route, the other route, hey, you're going to have massive, huge yields of fruits and veggies and, take pictures and post them. But that is the difference between higher number NPKs and lower number NPKs. Again, the higher numbers are normally always going to be a synthetic, almost, not always, but almost, going to be a synthetic type of chemical fertilizer. The lower numbers, more than likely, will always be an organic type of fertilizer. One other thing about chemical and organic fertilizers are the chemical fertilizers are pretty much only going to have those 3 numbers, those specific chemicals. If you go the organic route, organic fertilizers are going to have so many more just natural nutrients in that fertilizer. So if the number is 1000, just because it's 10 and it's got a lot of nitrogen doesn't mean it doesn't have anything else. It's going to have a lot of other beneficial nutrients in that fertilizer. So there is a big difference between the chemical and the organic. You just have to determine which way you want to go. Okay, now that we've covered everything, if you're a beginner gardener, you should have a good, solid, basic understanding of those 3 numbers, the NPK: nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium. Or, like I said earlier, shoots, roots, and fruits. You cannot beat that. Now, I did not come up with the shoots, roots, and fruits thing. That was not me. That was in a book that I'll put up right here from the creator of Next Level Gardening and Next Level Homestead, Brian. He wrote this book. It's in that section on page 70 or 72, I forgot, where he goes over this topic, NPK. And that simple way of thinking of this, shoots, roots, and fruits, makes just so much sense. It's so easy to remember, and it just should be something that you can totally look at those numbers and immediately know what that bag of bone meal, or what that bag of blood meal, or what, Dr. Earth's tomato and veg, or Neptune's Harvest tomato and veg. When you see those numbers, you should automatically now know what each of those numbers means. Again, shoots, roots, and fruits. They will always be in that order. Y'all, I hope this was a beneficial video. I hope you got something out of this. I've been wanting to do this video for a while. I really thought about it and really wanted to get out here on a beautiful day like today. I wanted to wait until about the middle of April, beginning of May, when the garden is starting to come to life. It's not fully all the way up there yet, just to be able to explain, hey, if you start over the winter and you start amending your beds before you start planting, once you start planting in spring, you should have an incredibly great jump start on the production of your fruits. And knowing what these three numbers mean is so beneficial to you. Everyone, as always, if y'all enjoyed this video, do me a favor, share it, like it, and subscribe to this channel if you have not done so already. I speak on behalf of all of us here on Down Home Backyard Gardening that we would all love to have all of you join all of us on this continued journey of gardening together. Y'all take care, God bless, and if you are new to gardening, always be reading and researching and learning everything you can about this amazing hobby. And for me, way of life. I'll talk to y'all again real soon. Bye.